Getting started on the first part of this layers project, it's really important to lay out where you want your focal point. That way, as you're creating the rest of your designs, you can make everything kind of lead towards that focal point and just make that focal point stand out. So you can see here where I circled and labeled where my focal point's going to go. And then I'm just drawing all of these different designs pointing towards it, acting as my leading line. So all those lines on the outside are meant to draw that attention in towards my focal point. And now I'm getting started sketching my focal point. Remember to follow the rule of thirds with your focal point. So I have it off to the side down in the corner there. And then not only am I following the rule of thirds with it, but I'm following lead space. So I have the longer sections of that focal point coming out towards the larger area where I left space off to the side. And then I drew the smaller points coming off the focal point here that are a lot shorter that go towards the corner, so they get cut off. So again, it's important to make sure your focal point still follows lead space, even if it's not a person or an object that can look a certain way. So you can still have those long pieces of your focal point extending out towards the larger section of your page. Remember too that a background is very important when you're creating a piece of art. Even if it's something simple, it's nice to just make it feel completed versus having a blank white background. So one thing that I usually tell people that works really well is just creating a simple vignette. So that's what I'm doing here with the purple paint, is creating a vignette, which is where it's darker on the outside and then it fades into a lighter color as you get closer towards the inside. So with this watercolor, I am using the water first because it makes it a lot easier to blend. I'm just layering the watercolor, trying to make it, again, darker on the outside and then fade to get lighter on the inside. So you can see how with that purple, it's a lot darker. And now I'm bringing in a found object. So again, remember that you want at least 2 to 3 additional found objects on top of your background there. So what I'm using is tinfoil, and I'm keeping the design somewhat consistent so that it's not too much going on. So I'm using the same sort of shape that I did in the background there. And I just cut out the tinfoil, glued it on there, and still trying to make those lines go in towards my focal point, as well as frame the focal point. So right now I felt like my focal point wasn't standing out enough when I added in that tinfoil. It almost took away from the focal point. So I'm just trying to draw that attention in to make it stand out. There's a lot of ways you can do that, but contrast is one of them, or doing some sort of design that is different from everything else that's going on in the image, which will again draw that attention in towards the focal point. And then I felt like it needed Sharpie in other places as well, because remember, you want a little bit of movement in your piece. You don't want that one area to stand out necessarily too much, even though it's the focal point. You still want some movement and repetition, which we're going to be mainly focused on with the next second piece of this project. But now I'm just going in with some more watercolor to move that purple color around, and again, make that focal point stand out even more. You don't want it to get lost. I know it's easy with all these different materials to add a lot and have almost too much detail that takes away from your focal point. So keep coming back to that focal point and think of ways that you can really draw attention to it and make it stand out. The other thing that the tinfoil and then those black lines there with the Sharpie are doing is creating framing around that focal point. And I'm also bringing this black paper in to really emphasize that framing. So I'm just wrapping some designs around the focal point, which will also help it to stand out. And again, I felt like there was a little bit much going on, so I wanted to just kind of simplify things and really draw that attention and focus in towards the center there where the focal point is. So keep thinking about what else you can do. If you feel like you're finished, make sure that your focal point stands out. You've got a couple of different materials, and you did incorporate the rule of thirds and lead space as well, in addition to framing. But be creative, think of some different materials that no one else would really think of. Maybe go outside, find some different things, but really again, focus on layering, focus on making that focal point stand out, and just incorporating those rules that we talked about.